Good afternoon. I want to thank you all for being here and giving me this opportunity and my partner, Val Crew, to talk to you about student enterprise. I spoke to my son briefly this morning before I sent him off to school, and I told him what I was going to be doing, giving a presentation in front of 500-plus people, and he said, "Dad, won't you be nervous?" And I said, "Son, if you're not nervous, then what you're presenting must not be very important." So I'm extraordinarily nervous because the Student Enterprise Program is our flagship program and is having tremendous impact in this community, and we hope in the next few minutes we can tell you a little bit about what it is. And so hopefully you'll be as moved as the Women of Impact 100 were. Student Enterprise Program and the Economic Center for Education and Research. That's who we represent, and that's what our program is. And it represents a little bit of a perception problem because those two names don't exactly roll off the tongue. And frequently we ask, oh, well, what is that? What is the Student Enterprise Program? Well, we call it STEP. And what does the Economic Center for Education and Research do in this program? Well, essentially what we try to accomplish is we want to teach the fundamentals of economics to 3rd, 4th, and 5th graders. And we frequently get responded back with, well, why would you want to do that? Because economics is often a scary word, and you think of the economics teacher you may have had in high school or in college. Well, economics, when broken down, is really the study of choices. And if you grow up in an environment where you believe you have no choices, then truly you have no hope. And what STEP does is it tries to introduce hope in often areas of hopelessness. So what we're going to talk to you a little bit today about is how we take STEP into the urban schools. In order to understand that, I'm going to have to ask you to imagine for a second. Because you hear a lot of statistics and you hear a lot of phrases, a school with 80 to 100% of students on free and reduced lunch. But until you've been in this building and until you've understood and looked around, you truly don't understand what it is. So if I could ask you for imagine just for a second, this is our school. This is our classroom. You are a 9 to 11-year-old. You are in 3rd through 5th grade. As you look around the table, you will find that we are what's been described as a lower achieving school. Our school has frequent poor attendance issues. There are frequent behavioral issues at our school. We all come to school wanting to succeed. We want to learn, but we run into obstacles on a daily basis. So imagine this is your child's school. There's lots of kids. Okay, maybe the classroom isn't this big, 500, but these schools are underfunded, and these classrooms are getting bigger every day. And as you visit an urban classroom, you're going to find 25, sometimes over 30 students in that classroom. We are typically children of poverty, and many of us are struggling at our grade level when it comes to a subject like reading. A lot of us, unfortunately, by the age of 10, have already checked out. We came to school as a struggling learner at the age of 6, and by the time we reached 3rd, 4th, or 5th grade, there was a lot of things outside the school building that are calling our attention. Because we achieve in the home, we achieve in the neighborhood, we're successful at things outside of the school, we struggle inside of that building called school. So what is our motivation to go there on a daily basis? Let me talk to you briefly about the same school with the Student Enterprise Program. Because STEP's duty, number one, is to engage students in learning and get them excited. It's to bring hope, as I said, in an area of hopelessness. We call ourselves peddlers of hope with STEP. Students begin to take responsibility for themselves, set goals for themselves, and learn that their choices can have positive consequences. STEP gives a student a job in that classroom. Who wasn't excited and who isn't excited anytime they get that new job? In STEP, we establish a school-based economy. Kids are given jobs. They take their job and they learn that job number one is to be a good student. They're given responsibilities so that now they understand coming to school every day means something. It contributes to their school paycheck. Making positive choices, doing their homework, achieving academically. Suddenly, every small step becomes a big step in their world. Suddenly, every step is a positive step toward doing better at their job. It's not a portion of the day. It's all day, every day. It's a tool that a teacher uses to assign incentives to students to step out and begin to achieve, often for the very first time. So it's math when they run their student store and they sell products to each other. It's science when they're designing the boxes or the packaging for their products. It's reading when they're researching how to make their product better. It's writing when they're designing a newspaper ad to convince other classrooms to purchase products from them. Students earn school currency, and frequently we get asked, why do you have to pay students through a school-based currency to get them to do what they should be doing anyway? Well, imagine your job and you were hired into a position that quite soon you determined you weren't very good at, and it wasn't a very fun place to be for you, and you had no paycheck to count on at the end of the day. You might want to check out of that environment relatively quickly or find some other job. Well, our students in our schools don't have another choice. They have to be educated. So our students start to recognize and internalize the value of education. They see that hope and mobility comes with education. So what do they do with these school-based dollars? Well, they come to student stores that we operate. Think of the old bookmobile concept. They buy school supplies. But it's not just about self. They start seeing their own rewards, but they also start to be able to provide for the home. So they'll buy a present for mom on Mother's Day. They'll buy a gift for grandma for her birthday. They'll buy personal hygiene products for the home, and they start becoming a provider in their home environment. STEP gives students an incentive to learn that may not have already existed. I asked you to imagine this is a classroom. Dr. Crew is going to tell you a couple of real stories coming from our classes.
Every child deserves a little help, a little hope, and someone to believe in them. This is what we try to provide every day in the schools that are provided the Student Enterprise Program across the greater Cincinnati area. Today I have the privilege of sharing just two really quick stories where we've actually seen the power of our program at work. The first time I walked into one of our fourth grade urban inner city schools, I noticed a young man by the name of D'Amico. D'Amico was an angry young man. You could see it on his face, that his face wasn't where everyone else was in the classroom. D'Amico's actual physical desk and his body was facing the back of the room, while everyone else was being instructed by the teacher at the front of the room. This was a curious sight to me, and as I wove through the classroom quietly and sat beside him to observe the classroom setting and the teacher in action, I noticed something even more interesting. D'Amico was slumped in his chair. His book was open to the wrong page. He was fiddling with something in his desk, and he was mumbling. And I thought, well, this is a really angry young man. But the more I listened, and the more I engaged myself in the classroom, I realized that D'Amico, during this math class, was answering every single solitary question correctly, while he was supposedly disengaged towards the back of the room. This continued for the entire lesson, and at about 15 or 20 minutes into the lesson, the teacher dismissed the students to go to art class, and I asked her, what's the deal with D'Amico? She said, well, D'Amico is a troubled kid. He comes in with a chip on his shoulder every day. 3 foster homes. This was his third one in November of the school year, and it had started in August. He pushes the kids around. He's a bully. He's extremely disrespectful to me, and I can't figure out what to do with him. I asked if she would give me permission to have him be an assistant manager for me in their school store, and I watched something strange happen to D'Amico. Pretty soon, the students realized very quickly that D'Amico was the go-to guy for math. He could do math in his head. So pretty soon the students were saying, hey, D'Amico, how much is this pencil and this notebook and this eraser? And he would say, hey, I'm not going to tell you the answer, but I'll help you figure it out in your head. And he had an entire group of students within a month that he had won to his side, not because he was angry, but because his giftedness in math had taken him to a level where he was a reveled person in the classroom. He had a reason to come to school now that had nothing to do with the environment that he cannot check at the door when he walks in every day. A little help, a little hope, someone to believe in him. On the other end of the scale was a young man named Robert. Robert was a special education student. Robert was in a 9-child family. And just to get at least half of those children to school every day was an arduous task for his mother. And Robert was a quiet, shy young man who slipped through the cracks. He did not cause any waves. He sat very quietly in the back of the room, and he felt an obligation to at least participate, but he was basically clueless about what was going on. Once again, I asked the question about Robert and why he seemed so distant, and the teacher said, basically, it's a surprise that Robert's here today. Robert misses an average of 1 to 2 days per week in the classroom. And when he does come, we spend all of our time trying to get him caught up on what he's missed. Well, Robert fell in love with the school cash concept because he could earn cash for not just getting to school, but getting to school on time. And the teacher realized in about a month that Robert was the first one standing in line. He was the first person waiting to get that school cash. And I likewise asked Robert, hey, Robert, you want to help me with it in the school store? Robert became my go-to guy for organization. He loved getting all the pencils together in a nice little organized pattern. And the students would ask him, is there a blue one? I'd rather have a blue than a green. And once again, Robert started looking a lot different than he did when we walked into the room. By the end of third quarter, Robert was no longer special education. Robert was on honor roll. Because you see, Robert was never special education. It's just that he didn't come to school enough for people to really know what he knew. I wish that every person in this room could see what I see in those eyes of those children every day. When I walk through the hallways, and as soon as we walk in a door, we're like the Pied Pipers. Hey, is the school store truck here today? Yes, it is. We have no signage on us. We don't put a STEP logo on our forehead, although George has asked us to tattoo our bodies. We don't do that. And basically, we come in just as we are. And the students are so thrilled to know that. The power of what they have earned in the classroom is what Mr. Pepper refers in Chapter 6 of his book about passionate ownership. When you own it, it is yours. And when you own it, no one can take it away from you. Not your dignity, not your pride, and not who you are in this world. A little help, a little hope, and someone to believe in them.
I can't follow that. I never can. Just to conclude, STEP delivers hope to children. The stories you've heard in our initial discussion was what we presented Impact 100, and it was a call for funds to expand our impact in urban schools. But the exciting thing is we have equally exciting stories about our work in suburban schools and rural schools and schools where it's a private school. I mean, this program is adaptable to all schools at any place, anywhere. And we're looking to expand it. We look for the support. We want to thank the people in the audience who have supported STEP in the past. We're going to look to continue to grow and expand this program. We're proud to say we're in over 20 Cincinnati public schools. 100% of those schools have asked us to come back for next year. With the gift from Impact 100, we're going to add 5 new schools next year. We're in another 20 schools that are at a completely different model doing completely different things. But as it's been said, kids need to learn choices have consequences. Good choices matter, and learn the value of education, and we do that on a daily basis.